Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. It is Monday, November 15th, 2021. Trust everyone had a great weekend, waking up to this brand new crisp Monday right here on the beautiful Spice Isles of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Welcome to the broadcast. It's a pleasure to have you. Those of you carrying the broadcast live, we welcome Mikey Live, Partygrenada, of course, MTV, who's carrying us on air and online, TNR Communications, KG9, our own Perspectives page, and we welcome all of you viewing and or listening wherever you are, getting ready for work and school. More folks are going off to school today. With this being November 15th, we could clearly say like we have like a month to go before Christmas, because you know around December 15th, things will start winding down. So we're looking forward to that, right? I am Brenda Baptiste. Welcome to Perspectives. And it's time to say good morning to Senator Christopher Allie and Mr. Byron Campbell. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Brenda.
How are we this morning?
Good, in all things considered. We look forward to the winding down of 2021, I think. 2021 has been a difficult year for a lot of us. And, a lot of Grenadians will have lost loved ones in 2021 versus 2020. So I think it was a difficult year all around. And then we, of course, have the issue we're seeing now with inflationary increases on, of course, all goods and services.
Right.
And that is posing a challenge as we end the year. The issue of, availability of goods, as we have the logistics issues that continue to plague us internationally and regionally as well. So I think we had a lot of challenges for 2021, and I think some of us looking forward. I certainly looking forward for it to end and see what 2022 brings with a lot more positivity and.
Well, we're not looking forward to 2020 to end as well.
2020.
We were looking forward to that, right? Remember that?
Yeah,
okay. So let's take it in bite-sized portions. One foot in front of the other.
I tried. But I'll keep the positive outlook.
Yeah.
I believe, as we move forward, I think we have that 2022 to look forward in a positive way. I see we now have the Johnson & Johnson one shot in Grenada, and the boosters are now becoming available. And, as I hand it over to Byron to say good morning, I think we need to talk about COP26, what happened there.
Absolutely.
And, the new cruise industry have started. We had, I think, 4 or 5 boats.
Nothing really happened at COP26, but it's useful.
Well, good morning. Good morning, all. Chris, I mean, we have to touch on the COVID and where it's at. I think we've lost 200 lives, and that's it's a lot. Unacceptable, some would say. We could do better than that. We have to do better than that going forward. And what would mitigate this is vaccination, and I'm glad to hear you saying that Johnson & Johnson is now here. I think we received 2,000 vaccine, and so persons have a wider choice.
Other options.
Single
shot option.
Single shot options.
Because the single shot option works for a lot of people. Make no mistake, there are some people, and needles drive them literally crazy.
Chris, and of course you mentioned COP26, and let's keep in mind this is the 26th meeting of this climate effort, and the results coming out of it, the final declaration seems to be a mixed bag. It depends on which side of the coin you are. If you're in one of the countries that small islands that are sinking, that you're losing ground, or Grenada that you're carrying out.
The Maldives is a good example.
Maldives, exactly. You're very disappointed. You're saying, no, it didn't go all the way. And some argue, for the first time we have the mention of coal in this agreement, and we know coal contributes, they say, 37%?
Yep.
Of
probably more.
Maybe more. So to phase down and not phase out is two different things,
That kind of language.
That kind of language. But still, I think what's interesting for me though is that an agreement to deforestation by 2030 to end it to the extent that is happening now, I think is a big deal. I think what's not good enough, I always look at the climate financing aspect, because as countries like small island states like ours, we benefit from this in the sense that we have access to some of this fund. But as you know, as we were mentioning earlier, and it takes too long to access these funds. But $100 billion, they're looking for more money.
500 billion.
500, they want to go to 5. From 1 to 5 seem to be a huge gap. So I think it'd be interesting also to hear from our representatives at COP 2026.
Yeah, it will make more sense, and
what it means for us
it would
concretely.
it would drive the point home as to what it means for Grenada and just how policy is going to shape, what's coming out of COP and so on. But it was interesting. I saw the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Dr. Timothy Antoine, as he addressed the conference of banks last week, making the point that out of all that money all this money available in the climate fund, not $1 has come to this side of the world since in the last year or two. So it's taking some time, and then there's a lot of, we can't wait for 5 years or 6 years to start acting on some things. Islands like Grenada, Barbados, we've been in a lot of trouble, and it also takes behavioral change from us, the citizens of these territories. It has to be reflected in all our policies, the way we live, the way we build, the way we eat, the way we drive, what we put in our vehicles, what we put, on the seafront, and all of that. So it's a lot. It's a lot, and we need to. It might sound lofty and far away and superfluous and all of that, but it is really the survival of us on this planet.
It ain't lofty and it ain't far off. We have climate change happening to us right now. I mean, let's take a few examples. Sea level rise, for example. We have seen what sea level rise did to Martinique and one of that playing fields.
People don't relate to these things.
Then we have the issue of the bleaching of our coral reefs. And what is happening
and that's
there.
been happening for a while.
Then you have this situation we had up in Satés with the beach and what is happening with the disappearing of some beaches. And that's just talking on the sea level rise. Let's talk about the flash flooding in hinterland, inside land now, where we talk about
15 minutes of rain.
Right.
We have droughts, we have unpredictable weather.
That's right.
So from a farming and food production point of view, you have major issue there.
Very threatening.
So we have all the MPAs being set up to protect the fisheries and what is happening there. And we're seeing a lot of things that's happening, that's one happening after the other, and they're coming, but they're going to add up. And that's the thing, it's going to add up. And I keep saying, if we look at the carnage, I mentioned this the last time, the carnage can't wait for 5 years.
No.
With sea level rise of what's happening and what the predictions are. The Maldives are saying that from 1.5 degree going to 2 degree, which with this particular COP session did not seem to give the guarantee that they will try and stay at 1.5. They say if they moved by 0.5 of a degree in the next 5 to 10 years, they'll be wiped out. As islands, because they're low-lying. They'll be wiped out.
It was interesting to see one of the ministers there, I think it was the finance or the foreign minister. He was giving his address in the water. He was making a point.
He had to. I mean,
that was dramatic, but he's in the water with his suit, and he's saying, "Look, this is to be land. I'm in the water.
There were some world leaders who showed up there and they decided they were not going to make nice. The nicest part was the greeting, and then they just went to town on. But interestingly as well, it was the world leaders who really don't have the power, so to speak, to make the change that we need to change. So we need to do. So if we're getting more of them and it keeps adding up and we keep applying pressure, probably. But as I said, the big countries, I mean, there was no Russia, there was no China, all these countries who are, really contribute to the degradation.
And surprisingly, the greatest pushback came from India.
India.
In terms of the coal and the burning of coal.
This morning.
It's money.
This morning,
they say they're developing states.
It's money. It's money. It's about money.
This morning, Delhi is in a state of emergency due to smog. But the bigger point is this, that, and taking India out of it, when you look at the US and China and Russia and the European Union, all these countries develop as a result of burning fossil fuel. So the damage has been done. At the same time, developing countries now that need to move in terms of their development status are being told you can't burn fossil fuel. So the argument comes that, well, we need financing to look at the alternative, help us with the alternative energy, or help us find, or just take it down, you talk about the MPA or Marine Protective Parks. I know about it, I have interest in it, and there's problem for financing. These kind of projects, because we're trying to save or salvage our reef situation due to the bleaching, as you mentioned, There should be financing, climate financing, to fully do this.
And
The
let's
big
talk-
countries
let's
are not. They're not
Yeah.
they're not interested in giving up fossil fuel. It's just all.
Yeah.
It's just romanticized talk.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's clearly they didn't sign on to anything. They didn't say.
Yeah.
But they're pushing for us
Yeah.
to eliminate it, and we have to. We have to agree that we have to reduce our dependence on fossil fuel.
But here
So we need to go to the
here the
renewables.
conversation that Guyana is faced with now.
Yeah.
Here is Guyana as a country that have these huge deposits.
Is for you to go out and discover it. Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique are blessed with a wide variety of accommodation that satisfy any taste and budget. Find the one that suits you and your family and treat yourself while having peace of mind that your health and safety is a priority. Knowing that we have gorgeous waterfalls, stunning beaches, and flavorful cuisine, let's be tourists in our own islands and enjoy paradise at home.
Tourism connects us all.
Back to Perspectives, everyone. We thank those of you who have stayed with us. I regret we had some technical difficulties that we had to address here, so we had to come off air for a while. Thank you as we continue with the program. All right, we're just wrapping up on COP26, Conference of the Parties, about climate change in the world and all of that. So I think it behooves us to hear from our folks who attended the conference and just generally our plans as to where we are going with this. Last week, let's just, before we bring our guests, get to quick hot topics, so to speak, or spicy topics.
Well, I think we have...
Last week we had cruise ships.
Yes,
That was really good.
cruise
That was
ships.
really good to see them return to the port. It was such a beautiful day when they came, actually. Yes, it was really nice.
3 ships, is it?
We had two. We had one. We had a small one the day before, and then two big ones on the other day. And I think Saturday or the weekend we had one.
Yeah,
I do
think,
believe.
well, I think the minister said in her briefing that we expect 200 calls between now and the end of the year, which is a
Is it?
significant...
No. I heard a lower number.
65 through the end of the year, but
Right.
200 through about April.
Season.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
Okay.
that was it.
Right.
So I mean that is excellent for especially our vendors
It is.
Yeah.
and all the tour operators that are involved
It
in that
is.
aspect of the industry.
But
and-
Chris, but what's happening with the Granite area? I understand it's not part of the bubble because of the vendors market and persons
Yeah, well, I mean,
refusing.
that was clearly ventilated. I don't know
Yeah.
why we are making it such a huge issue.
Yeah.
Well-
You know, you can't. You have to and the excuses about being not engaged and all of that. Those things are not true. You know, it's a decision that everybody have to make, and you make your choice. Clearly, there are people operating there. What is the difference? Why are they operating? I think that's the question.
Well, no, I'm seeing it from the point of view that if I'm coming into Grenada on a cruise, I want to.
At the beach as a bubble.
Yeah.
And then you can't try to, as the minister aptly said, how you go try to tell people go on the beach, don't go when the ship come and go. You can't say that.
Yeah.
So the prudent thing to do is what has happened.
Take it off.
You know, and so once we get to that point, if we get to that point, and I would prefer to say when we get to that point, because I'm a glass full person. Then, but in the meantime, there's much of Grenada to enjoy. There are probably some new areas that they've never seen and explored before.
Well, I think, Brenda, the other point, I think what would also help the tourism sector also. I mean, I was saying that I participated in the Zoom meeting, get an update on the Western Road corridor. Mm-hmm. Because on the Western Coast, because of the fallout on Molinier, we have an issue with transportation that is very dangerous on the West Coast now. And an update on the project is that, and the financing is coming from the UK fund and local fund, government of Grenada. That work is due to start. The engineering consultants are far advanced and work on the aspect of the
boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground can happen within the first or second quarter of next year. So this is really good timing, I think. A large project when you look at the employment creation, but definitely that is an important infrastructural road and will make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, remember, with Molinier comes Monkuma.
Yeah.
And that bypass road that now comes from Bolio into Grenville Vale, I think it is. So we also getting that additional benefit happening there as well. So yes, I think the infrastructural works are going to be significant. But just to end back on the cruise tourism a little bit, I think that,
excuse me,
Byron, I am of the view that we need to open up our country.
Yeah.
We are going to be living with this virus.
Yeah.
The virus, for want of a better word, we have had situations where we know there is a solution. Vaccination versus no vaccination. If you make the choice to be vaccinated, you put yourself in a position that you probably have more benefits, you could do more things, and so on, versus unvaccinated. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, all countries cannot afford to lock down anymore. Yeah. You see it happening around the world where there's spiking and certain things are happening. And the conclusion is that the people who are getting in the high 90s percentage, getting sick and getting infected, sick and probably dying, are the unvaccinated. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, all of us have to make a decision that if you make the decision to be unvaccinated, that's fine, that's your right. But as Prime Minister Rowley just said, you have to put my consequence as well. Live with your consequences.
They have a T-shirt. He's something else. I really look forward to his press conferences. Straight shooter, takes no prisoners. He said they have a T-shirt in Trinidad, they're going around. My body, my choice. He said, oh, you forget a line. My consequence.
Yeah. and that boy, I think that summarizes it so aptly. Yeah. That is where we're going to be. And I know a lot of people still quarrel about we causing division because if you're vaccinated, you could do something. If you're not,
we only cause division because of how we relate one to another. If it is a state where I am receiving it a particular way, that's what's causing the divisiveness. Or people just digging their heels in. But if you understand what we're doing, I don't see why it should be divisive.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, Brenda, I am vaccinated. I could go to the movies. You're not vaccinated, you can't go
to the movies. So you have privileges.
Yeah.
Well, somebody could say I could watch Netflix home.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But and we have those choices will be facing us more and more.
Or there might be a group of people that may feel, well, the movies, they're discriminating.
Yeah. But some of the entertainment centers opened up this weekend. Yeah. And it was only for vaccinated people. Yeah. They were checking and so on to make sure. So you're seeing that coming on slowly but surely.
Listen.
But at the end of the day, I keep saying, I am fully in support of the position.
Yeah.
We open up back our country.
Yes.
We have a solution.
Yes.
The solution is to be vaccinated or not.
Yes.
And we go with that.
And the solution.
And see where it takes us.
And the solution includes removing the curfew.
Of course.
Entirely.
Of course.
Open up the door.
Of course.
So in interest
And I
of
know
full disclosure.
Our next guest is going to guide us on how we do that.
Yes.
In interest of full disclosure, right? So my birthday is not ending, right? To keep going on and on.
Yeah.
So
We ain't gonna talk about that just yet. I'll come back
on
to that.
Saturday, I was scolding for me.
Yeah.
So on Saturday, I went out. And then I had to keep watching more. I had to keep going. Just when you start to enjoy yourself after 11:15, the junction start to say, that's it.
Yeah.
The last song coming up.
Yeah.
Man only last song coming up. Hello, no.
You see, there's
But anyway, I say this because, let me tell you, from the time I park up and I start to walk down the road in Lansipine and the moon was coming in, listen, I show somebody, maybe say I'm crazy, I just scream out.
Yeah.
It's like great to be outside.
Yeah.
And a lady from our car scream out, yes! So I'm saying all of this to say, it was just so good for the psyche. I did not even realize that I was feeling this way. Because I'm really a homebody. As social as I can be, I'm a homebody. Give me 7-5 books and I good inside my place, right? But I didn't even realize I felt this way. So far less for social bees, people who need to be out there. It's coming up on 2 years. God, we need a break.
Yeah, and then of course
Open up.
you have to be concerned about another wave after this opening up that we're doing and getting back to some level of normalcy or new normal as they call it. So there is this concern that after the Christmas season and the holiday season we have to look out for a wave hitting us.
Oh gosh, let's put a
January
curse on
and
that.
February.
No!
Experts are saying that.
Yes, and I think when you look at
We
the
have to be
dashboards,
careful.
Yeah.
the dashboards have been coming forward for the last 2 weeks. It's a very positive dashboard. 0 infections after hundreds of tests, 0 deaths, and so on. For the last few weeks, that is where we have been.
The vaccine numbers are not moving in the
As
direction
fast as we want.
you'd like to.
Yeah.
And probably our next guest will help us speak to that.
I'm just keeping my eye. I'm holding on to this thing inside to just let it go and we get to 40,000.
It's moving there. It's close to there.
It's
Every day I look and I
34%.
see
35%,
30-something,
34%.
and I'm just waiting for us to get to that point for me to just scream, because it will be such an achievement from where we were. And sometimes you just have to judge your progress by where you were, to where you are now.
I think
not just compare it to the whole. You have to look at it from where we were to where we're going. And I think that it is working out.
Dr.
And we
Brenda
just have
Baptiste
to
had a
keep
very good
engaging
article he
each
put
other
out.
some more.
Speaking about getting to that point.
Yes.
And what we need to do. And his article clearly articulated the fact that vaccination is the way to go.
Yeah.
You might want to adjust the messaging. You may want to get more severe in how you get it done, whether through mandatory vaccinations or what. But the point is, the nation, the country has to get to that point where we can say if we have 60,000 of us vaccinated in a population of 100,000, we could say, great, let's move on and do things.
We're moving to 40,000. It is exciting.
I think it's with JJ on the scene now and children going back to school, that's another big positive thing for us. Getting children
vaccinated.
And getting them vaccinated.
More children go back, more students go back to school today.
Yes, and that is another positive thing of this in the opening up, and for parents, and for the children, the nutritional content and so on. And
exactly.
So forth.
We discussed this.
Discussed.
Please allow them to be who they are today.
Psycho part of it,
Don't give them any maths exams and stuff today.
I mean, there's so much we could get done, but we just need to get that vaccination up to the point where we can.
Absolutely. We also see that there's more information coming out. Those of us who like our history and like to put it in context. See, General Hudson Austin is addressing, remember that situation that occurred in Plains during the revolution when the Rastas were killed and and we were fed a story as to what happened, much as how we were fed the story of the bombing. And I see he's now talking about a lot of this. And I think we all need to pay attention to these things. There's so many things here in our country that is somebody else's story, but it's not a real story. And it's about time we come face to face, for as much as we say and as much as and as proud as we are, and revolutionaries as we are, Mr. Campbell, we have to agree We have to agree.
You will stay away from that one.
We have to. We have to agree. We have to agree. We have to agree. I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
We have to agree that as much as we love this revolution, we have to take. In 40 years later, here we are romanticizing it at best, but we have to take the dark sides of it too, the very dark sides of it, and we have to take and we have to put all of that. Yeah, we have to put. I am a flower of the revolution, and I'm proud of that. I'm not ducking. Yeah, I ain't ducking that.
Yeah.
I ain't ducking that, and
Brenda,
I think everybody know where I stand as it relates to that kind of thing.
All I will say to this is that in any event, there are several dimensions. And we need to be objective and realistic.
Open, very open, because you get so many different sides that at some point in the middle they all meet, and then you start to make sense of it. So you don't really dismiss any.
Precisely.
So it's just great to hear from General Hudson Austin, because he was such a key figure, a central figure in all of this, and we have not heard a lot from him. Something that stuck with me, remember when he walked out of prison?
Yeah.
When he was coming, everybody, their family was greeting them, and everybody was, and he was alone. At that time, we didn't know all the dynamics. He walked up Richmond Hill. He came out of Richmond Hill alone. And when they interviewed him and they asked him about apologizing, he said, "Who's apologizing to me?" And that has never left me. And I would like to ask him about that. Because I think I don't think he meant that we Grenadians have to give him an apology. I think it was something else.
I happen to know General Austin quite well, because he was also the Minister of Works in the Ministry of Works. He was the minister responsible, and I was for a time Deputy Permanent Secretary and Senior Assistant Secretary. He was my boss.
Right.
So we worked closely together over some time. So he's a good man.
Yeah, I
we
would
gonna
like
leave it there.
I would,
Yes.
We have to leave it there.
To go down that road
because
again.
you
Not
don't
just
want
yet.
to go down that road.
Not just yet.
You see, that's the problem with us.
No,
there
no,
are
no.
some roads we avoid.
No.
We have to go down
Going
those
down the
roads.
road from
Not
the
this
point of
morning.
discussion.
Not this morning, but
Yeah.
Senator Allie, we have to go down a lot of roads.
The Revolution Road is not a difficult road to go down.
Yeah.
Some of us don't want to.
His history, a
because
lot of lessons
what was
learned.
done and the
Yes, it's
participation
hard.
in certain
No, it's
things.
hard.
But, I mean,
Let's admit that, and it's
yeah.
very emotional for some
a
people.
lot of us were very much involved.
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah. And you know, another thing before we leave it, people have to get there in their own time. We can't push them into
Yeah.
it. Yeah?
Yeah.
We can't. Anyway, it is now a pleasure to introduce our special guest panelists for this morning. Gerard Sincere, he serves as an instructor of epidemiology within the Department of Public Health and Preventive Medicine in the School of Medicine at St. George's University. He obtained his postgraduate certificate in epidemiology from the University of London and a master's degree in public health from St. George's. He is also board certified in public health and has a Bachelor of Science in biology. He has been employed at St. George's University since 2006, imparting knowledge of epidemiology to students in the foundational courses focused on principles of epidemiology and medical students in the basic principles of medicine. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome to Perspectives our special guest panelist, Mr. Gerard Sincere. Good morning, Gerard.
Good morning, Brenda, and thank you for having me, and good morning to Mr. Campbell and Senator Allie. I've been listening on your discussions, and quite interesting one, and I'm happy to be part of your program this morning.
All right, it's great.
Morning, Mr. Sincere.
Morning.
It's so great to have you, and thanks for waking up early to come in to give us some perspectives. Before we get into the meat of the matter, you know, we've never heard, epidemiology, what is that? Why did you choose that? And really, what do you do with it? What does it do to the average person?
Yeah, Brenda, that's a really interesting question, and I've had to explain that to a lot of my friends and people who I come in contact with, because it's not a well-known subject or popular subject in Grenada, and mostly because we're not a research cultured people. So epidemiology involves the study of the determinants or risk factors for diseases among specific populations, and basically taking those results to inform stakeholders on how we should control or prevent diseases from occurring. So essentially, I teach students the basic concepts that epidemiology would employ as it relates to the practice of public health and medicine. And in so doing, I teach a lot about the different study designs, the strengths and weaknesses, the biases and other errors that may be introduced. And I really didn't know what or where that would have taken me. I was interested in biological sciences, medicine, public health. And so I chose the general public health track, which basically gave me a bit of everything. And so we have different tracks or specializations in public health. Epidemiology and biostatistics is one, public health policy and management, environmental health, and those different specializations. Global health is another specialization. And so when I was done with the MPH, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it took a bit of introspection. And finally, I realized that it was there all along, because my background, coming from Presentation Brothers College, is
Good
built
school.
Good school.
in natural science.
All right. Okay.
And
We the PBC choir boys, the PBC choir start to sing. These here. Yeah. Oh. Okay.
And it takes a certain special group of individuals who can be touched with that sensitive side where we can sing and sing properly and well to others.
Nice one. Good comeback. Good comeback. A good comeback.
It's a school on the hill with a shining light to the entire country.
Oh
Anyways,
my goodness.
But
my next question is, and what we really, really want you to hone in on this morning, is that now that we've gotten to a place of reduced regulations, more extensive socialization, and low vaccinations, just exactly why does everyone's individual actions matter at this very critical time?
Well, we can break it down as the population being a collection of units, and if we look at individuals as units, when we put the units together, it reflects on what would happen as a population as a whole. And so it goes both ways, because if I don't see myself as an important part of contributing towards the health of the nation as it relates to COVID-19 infections and outbreaks, then my behaviors would not be guided by that thought process. And so a lot of it has to do with looking at the whole picture, the big picture, and what is it that we need to achieve as a nation. And it really goes all the way back to questions like how invested are we as citizens in the development and the forward movement and thinking of our country. If we see ourselves as just individuals operating independently within the geographic state, Grenada, then we would not buy into that concept. And so individuals have to look at it as my behavior affecting the health of not just myself, but all the others that I come in contact with, because we've already gone through that really dreaded experience of the first wave, and we all know of the impact it had on us, seeing and many of our friends and individuals that we know passing on or even struggling to recover from the experience of COVID-19. And so it is important that we don't just see ourselves as an individual operating separately, because a population comprises of units, and we are the units. So whether or not we look at it as households or individuals or institutions or religious beliefs or cultural practices, we collectively we make up the population in Grenada, and so it is very important that we emphasize and we continue to sound that message that individual behavior largely will determine how moving forward, how we deal with and how quickly we get to the points where we can see that a larger percentage of our population are immune as relates to vaccine uptake and the way that we think, because there are some individuals who have resisted accepting the vaccine for no solid reason. And a lot has to be, a lot of questions must be asked and questioned in those areas. And the question of, again, kids getting vaccinated, are we targeting sending the appropriate information, necessary information to the parents? Because ultimately the parents will be making those decisions on whether or not the kids get vaccinated.
Mr. Sincere, I want to jump in and get your opinion on this as well, because I am of the view that we are approaching a place where, you know, a certain degree of tiredness is coming forward as we deal with vaccinations and trying to convince the unvaccinated to get vaccinated. There's a lot of information, albeit locally, and I want to talk locally, and I think there was a release put out just recently about getting vaxxed and who are the local specialists we could talk to, people like yourself, the doctors and so on, for people who need more information to get them over the line. But you're getting to a point where we're seeing this level of tiredness. So for example, I can speak for myself. You get to a point where you're tired of asking and prodding and giving information, and people are still resistant and they're coming up with, you know, we still want to wait and see, we're still not comfortable. How, from a public health standpoint, and I know we talk about changing messaging and so on, but the reality that we're seeing in the world right now, where we're getting spikes, is that the unvaccinated is where we're getting the spikes, is not in the vaccinated. So how do we, from a public health standpoint and from where you sit, how do you see us adjusting how we deal with this situation and getting people to understand that there is a solution, and the solution is through vaccination?
Well, so Allie, it's a very good question, and let me just pull it apart in bits, because public health has to, at times, develop and implement policies, and these policies are intended to benefit the wider population. And so from that perspective, we have to start nudging individuals with policies that would get some of them across the line to take the vaccines. And that would be, at times, in some instances, mandatory vaccinations. In addition to that, there are some individuals who would resist that. And so that's where the messaging and the research, the finding out who are these groups and how do we get them to get across the line as well. But further, we cannot ignore the fact that if we do not increase our vaccine uptake, we are potentially exposing ourselves for future outbreaks. And so the restrictions as it relates to who can visit and who can, the behaviors and the access that we have to certain environments must continue to separate or to ensure that we protect that potential from happening again. And so when we have restrictions, for example, you were jokingly talking about going to look at a movie at the cinema, requiring vaccinations for an environment like this is important, because we understand that closed environments with close proximity encourages the exposure and transmission of the virus. And so these policies are put in place to prevent or to reduce the risk of further outbreaks occurring. And so we have to accept that. And over time, individuals accept that. But we must not think that mandatory vaccinations as a requirement to get access is a bad thing, because it is in the interest of the population. And so public health and the authorities do not have a choice in my mind. And that is the direction that we have to go if we are to get to the point that we should, because I looked at the figures and we are just at 33,000 individuals that are fully vaccinated, and we need to get up to about 70,000 of 100,000. And so we are about halfway there in terms of the vaccinations, and it's increasing really slowly, and it has slowed down because the outbreak has died. And so there was a response because individuals were scared when we were having the number of deaths occurring during that first wave. So I'm just summarizing quickly. We have to tighten up on the access, on the availability of services. And when I say services, like entertainment based on the environment, because when we talk about closed environments and individuals are complaining about, well, we are discriminating. We are not discriminating to make you feel less of a person, but in terms of the greater good for our society, for our population, certain decisions must be made. And we should not feel any regrets or feel it's a bad thing. It's for the better good of the numbers. The data shows and continues to show that individuals who continue to experience extreme symptoms and morbidity from COVID-19 are the unvaccinated individuals.
Yeah, and before I bring in my
that's fine.
One more question for Mr. Sincere, and to follow up on that, Mr. Sincere, I think as we just seen in Grenada, we've opened up to the cruise industry. The tourism sector, in terms of the hotel plans, have had a sort of mandatory vaccination policy in place, particularly for the persons who had to serve guests and are going to be intermingling with guests more frequently than others. And we've seen it happening across various other business sectors as well. And the question becomes, from where we sit as business people, we are now faced with the issue of a health and safety problem, in that workers who are unvaccinated can bring this disease into our work environment and create an issue of, neglect for the employer, in that we haven't taken the necessary protocols, done the necessary things to prevent this. And we are going to end up in a situation, and I apologize for saying this, because I know you're associated with SGU, but a lot of us are looking at the SGU model to see how that pans out, because for us, it is a critical situation in terms of how we manage that safety of that environment. And I pose this to you from the point of view that I just heard you talk about that policies need to be introduced at times to get our nation to understand it is the total good and not a specific good that we're looking at. And from a policy standpoint, do you think we need to get a little more forceful with our policies, for want of a better word? I don't want to use draconian, because probably that will send a wrong message.
Forceful is strong too.
But do you think we need to get to a point where we look to set these policies based on the urgency that you're talking, and based on the fact that we're concerned that after this holiday season, we may see some other wave come in? God forbid we don't, because we can't take more deaths in 200 already among us. So what is your take on this? Do you think our policies need to get a little more pointed? I have always articulated for mandatory vaccinations for customs, immigration, the police force, the nurses, the doctors. I don't think we have a choice. These are positions where they're mixed with so many people. The risk is so high that it should be done. What is your take on this?
My position is that there needs to be a more focused approach, and management of different businesses need to address this seriously. We cannot just talk about it, and I believe that stricter measures need to be implemented with time as individuals continue to resist being vaccinated. Management must take a position rather than leaving it up to the wind, because it's a direction that we must take in order to protect businesses, in order to protect individuals, in order to protect the economy. We must make those decisions. And at times, as I said, and we can look back, this is not the first time that public health has had to make decisions like that. We've had to make decisions in the past that benefits the entire community, the entire population, the entire nations. And so management has to step up, I would say. Step up and take stronger position, not, as you said, draconian measures, but in ways that would send a message that this is beyond the individual. This is not just limited to my business, but this is beyond us. This is about economic activity. This is about the survival of our nation. And so when individuals start seeing it like that, we would not, as an employer, I would not agree with everything that my employer does. But as an employee, I need to be supportive and to see the bigger picture that my employer is trying to achieve or paint. And that's very important. We cannot just see it as an individual. I'm working by myself, but I'm not working for myself. I am employed. And if I'm employed, then I need to look at the direction and consider seriously the direction that my employer is going and the reasons for it. And if that is beneficial to my employer and my place of employment, then I would need to get on board. If I don't get on board, then I may have to make a decision whether or not I continue to be with that business or not. And so these are times when individuals need to stand up. And when I say stand up, we have to decide. We cannot be on the borderline thinking, well, why am I not taking the vaccine? I have no reasons, And so there isn't a gray line. The gray line continues to erode because what we're noticing is that the direction that everything is going is for the population, for the benefit of the population, and some individuals are sidelining themselves based on the positions that they're taking. I would not divorce myself from the fact that there are individuals who are really concerned or scared about being vaccinated. However, we must be able to, as managers, as employers, to be able to identify those individuals or groups of individuals that we employ and be able to collectively come up with decisions that would benefit the business, benefit the individuals, whether it's getting to individuals to change their thinking or their positions and using different strategies. So it's tightening the policies, management standing up and making decisions that would benefit them. Because there is, Senator Diallo, there is a potential for another outbreak after the Christmas season, because there will be a lot of movement, there will be individuals coming in, individuals going out, there will be more socializing, there will be more activities, entertainment activities. And so, especially after a lockdown, individuals need to free up and to enjoy themselves after being, enclosed for so long. And so there is a potential into 2022 for us to have outbreaks, possibly end of January into February. And so with that in mind, we cannot be laxed in our approach. And so the drive to get vaccinated, the drive to create that herd protection for our population, whether it's through the places of employment, etc., we have to continue to emphasize.
Yeah, in a way, you've answered the question. But let me build on a little bit on what on the discussions, how it's been going. Different countries have applied different policies towards dealing with the pandemic. So there's no roadmap, but clearly, so Sincere, there's a science to this. As we evaluate Grenada's approach, as we analyze it, as we evaluate it, we know we understand the process. We know how we've got to where we are. How could we have done this better? What would you have added from your point of view? And the second part of the question is having to do, and you've touched on it a bit, in terms of, because of where we are presently. And as you rightly mentioned, we're opening up, we have the cruise industry, we have the Christmas season coming on stream, and you mentioned a real possibility of other spike. What concretely, what specifically would you recommend to, and we talk about the vaccination is clearly, as you've articulated, one of the primary way forward. But specifically, how can we, what can we do to mitigate against this? Whether it's in the messaging, what is your recommendation going forward to avoid such a situation occurring?
Okay, first of all, Mr. Campbell, thank you for your two questions. I'm going to address the first one. What would have I added based on the first experience or even during it? And I've said that I don't believe that we were totally prepared for this level of outbreak. In our planning, we did not have a holistic approach towards the problem, because when I say the problem, that's what epidemiology sees those things are. They are problems that we try to solve. And when we are talking about an outbreak, we are not talking about a medical problem. We are talking about a public health problem, because this was impacting the entire population. So whilst the pathogen or the virus can be studied through biomedical processes, and we understand how it operates, etc., how the vaccine operates and those things, the behaviors and the policies and the messaging, these are public health issues. These are related to public health. And so one of our major downfalls was that we did not have a strong enough public health presence on the direction that we were supposed to take. And as a result, we lost some important time, significant time that allowed the viruses to spread within the population as wildfire. I believe if we had that public health presence on the direction that we were supposed to take, then we would have been able to control the spread of the SARS-CoV-2 much faster than we did, or maybe even prevent it to a certain extent. But we could not have prevented it from coming in, but the extent to which and the impact it had, we did not do a good job with educating the public on what we should have expected. Whilst the minister would have spoke about we would have deaths, the message was not sent out in ways that would have alerted the individuals that this is not just deaths, but these deaths are caused by behaviors. And if we're going to have a certain number of cases, then we would expect a certain number of deaths, because it has been proven that we're going to we usually would see about 15 deaths for every 1,000 cases that we diagnose. And so that I would have changed off the bat, a stronger public health presence. I also believe that St. George's University should have been engaged in a different, and more specifically, the public health program, which is where I believe that there should have been better interactions and a lot more communication, and the how much that we could have contributed towards the whole process. I'm not talking about getting out there with vaccination programs and the different aspects that we have with vaccination, but I'm talking about the messaging, the focused approach, and how do we approach this from a holistic perspective. And I believe that in the future that this needs to be done. St. George's University should not just be seen as an institution that provides tertiary education, but there are significant ways and things that we can do. And so the Master of Public Health program is nested within the School of Medicine, and we have resources there, personnel there, that I'm sure that can help create an impact towards addressing situations like this. So that would have been, I believe that the major weakness was the public health presence, and that came out because of we were unprepared for such an outbreak. Secondly, what would I recommend for future spikes? How do I prevent it? I would say, Mr. Campbell, that we ought not to think that we've passed the first wave and it wouldn't come back. The second wave would come by simply numbers. Let's just say we've vaccinated 33,000 individuals, and let's say another 20,000 individuals got COVID, so that would be like 53 individuals who have some levels of immunity. It would mean that about half of our population still is susceptible to COVID-19. And that is kind of a high still. So it would mean that 1 in every 2 persons possibly is still susceptible. And that, as I mentioned in previous programs, that the potential for an outbreak increases once the balance between immune individuals and susceptible individuals is not as high as enough. So we always want a higher percentage of immune individuals compared to susceptible individuals. As it stands now, it may just be still a 1-on-1 ratio. I would say about 50% of our population has some level of immunity, and we understand immunity drops over time. And as a result, the potential still lies less than the first time because we were totally susceptible, but we still have a potential for half of our population to have to contract COVID-19. And as a result, the messaging must continue to emphasize that we need not forget what our first experience was. This was a terrible experience for us as a population. It hits everyone. It affected everyone, each person in our population. And so moving forward, whilst we have relaxed our restrictions, and obviously we must return to some form of normalcy because we have to learn to live with COVID-19. It's not going to go away. It's going to be here for a very long time. And as a result, our direction moving forward should now be what can we change in terms of the thinking, in terms of the approach of individuals as it relates to adhering to our protocols, continuing to wear masks, continuing to sanitize, continuing to social distance, and what are the avenues? In other words, what avenues would we use? Now, is it going to just be general messages on the television or on the telephones or on the radio program, media programs? No, because we can also send those directives through businesses, through religious institutions, through the schools. And those messages must go. We must find messages out to the communities and the blocks, to the playing fields, and those things. We must to the different sporting associations, the football association, the basketball association. Yeah. We must make sure that we cover all our areas and we must cover the fishermen, we must cover the farmers. So we must send those messages. We have the Grenada Cocoa Association, we have the Grenada Nutmeg Association, we have the Banana Association. So we must continue to send the messages tailored to specific groups of individuals. General messages on the television, which have been seen, is all good, but it is not the only approach. And so we have to have this holistic approach towards continued sensitization of our population, even as we get into the festive season.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Before you go, and you have to do this in a bite size. And I know bite size is not your thing because you're so thorough that maybe that's why you chose epidemiology. So as an epidemiologist, what did you specifically learn about our first wave?
This is my first, I teach we teach those things, we talk about it in the classroom, and having to experience it, Brenda, I'm telling you, it takes you to a next level. You first of all, you learn to appreciate what you're doing. So I've learned to appreciate what I'm doing and the knowledge that I'm impacting on my students, and even the little drives that I made on Facebook, on the programs that I appeared on to help pass on information to the general population. So I've learned a greater appreciation for what I do and see the value more so in what I do, and not just imparting knowledge, but in helping us as Grenadians to understand what has happened and what may continue to happen over a period of time. Because interestingly enough, I predicted in July that this was going to happen. On my Facebook page. I predicted that we're going to have an outbreak in late August, September into October.
I remember.
And it happened as I predicted. So I'm just saying here not to tap myself on the shoulder, but I appreciate most of what I'm doing from personally, but from a population perspective, I've learned also that we really need to be more conscious of our health, and we are not so concerned as a people about our health, and that concerns me. It has saddened me to when I realized that we as a people have not taken this seriously enough to understand that the impact that it can have. And as we enter into these times, we may be seeing more and more of these viruses having that kind of an impact on us. And if we do not educate ourselves, if we do not think about our health, about teaching our kids even from a young age, if our educational system does not include that, if we as parents and as a church and as different institutions do not teach or help us to understand the importance of taking care of yourselves and living healthy lifestyles, then we would continue to suffer like this, because as I mentioned, 1 in every 3 individuals in Grenada is either pre-diabetic or diabetic. And that's a cause for concern. We are among the leading in the Caribbean in terms of cancer incidence, top 3. And so these are things that as a nation we need to address, and we are not. And what is it that is causing those outcomes? And so this experience just highlighted to me that we are not at the place where, as a nation, we see health as an important priority for our success moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. I realize you try really hard to do the bite size.
Let's stop that. My class will be minimal 2 hours long. So
I know, Jerry. I know how thorough and meticulous you are. Thank you so very much. And you did mention your Facebook interactions. And while I have you here, let me just say thank you on behalf of the social sphere for all that you did for us when you entered the fray and started to write and inform us about, how we should behave, just telling us more about the COVID-19 as from a public health standpoint. I think your interactions, and as a Grenadian, I think it was really, really useful. So here's your award from the public and social sphere, who learned a lot from you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brenda. That means a lot, and I always see myself as being part of the larger picture, as part of a population. And so what I did was just coming out of my heart to be able to educate individuals. I went through a similar process before I decided to take the vaccine, because obviously there were some barriers there. And so I had to educate myself.
Yeah.
And then I was able to make decisions. So I understood that if I'm in health and public health, and I had to go through that process, how much more for an individual who doesn't understand what's happening,
Correct.
who doesn't know the science.
Correct.
And so that sort of what just propelled me to, hey, you need to do something, because there are many more individuals out there who doesn't understand what's happening.
And that's what you imparted, that relatable, personable thing, not that just hitting with information, but it was really personable and relatable. So thank you for that. And thanks for coming on this morning. We really appreciate it. I'd like to thank St. George's University, especially its communications department, Kareed Clement, and Gerard Sincere, my good old friend from the Institute of Further Education, from where all good things flow.
I just want to say to Senator Allie and Mr. Campbell for the questions and for always having such interesting programs and discussions. Whenever I have time, I usually follow and listen to you guys, and I must say it's very informative. Continue the good job, and to St. George's University for allowing me the opportunity to represent them in this program. I just want to say thanks to my employer as well.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. Great basketballer from Big Parish. Now Grenada's foremost epidemiologist. Have a good day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Is it a PBC thing?
Gosh, boy, the PBC, listen. Listen. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Gerard Sincere, epidemiologist, MPH, SGU. Really wonderful Grenadian. And really it is a time when that kind of information is really useful for us.
My takeaway here is that first, I'm proud. We are proud. I think Grenada must be proud of Gerard. Products.
Absolutely.
Gerard, of this, 100%. Second point is that I think, as you rightly said, we have to stay on target with this COVID matter. It's not going away. We have to deal with it and don't get carried away with the present status. And thirdly, I think an important point he made that we have to see the SGU as a resource, not only from the training point of view, but from a resource that we can use in this pandemic.
Yeah.
Agreed, Byron. And I think that is a good point, the SGU resource.
Yeah.
And how we could exploit it more and more to assist with the messaging and other aspects
We
of
seem to
public
be
health.
missing that boat a lot. It's just a vast resource.
Yeah.
I also believe that he made an interesting point that at some time in this conversation with COVID, and to get us back to normalcy, we have to get more focused and stringent with what we do from a public health standpoint.
Correct.
And probably introduce policies that will guide our people, because as he said, this is not about an individual, it's about our nation and how we see that.
The greater good.
It's not the selfishness of I taking or not taking versus, if we do it as a nation and we think there is some public good in what we're looking at, the greater good, then we should make a decision after educating ourselves on the pluses and the minuses that, this is probably the way to go, and vaccination is the way to go. I mean, that stat he gave there of whether we have natural immunity and vaccination of about 50,000 people, and 1 in every 2 of us still open to serious.
Startling.
I mean, and that's putting it as simple as it can be.
Exactly. And based on that kind of information, that is how you start preparing and mitigating.
1 and 2.
Yeah, not being frightened. And saying,
But
well, okay,
Lord,
we go, the little fright is good, but what I'm saying, we react like, oh God, Lord, the second wave will come, so let me keep them locked down. And we have to plan.
Here we have a focus group of students between 12 and 17 that could take this. And I am like Gerard, he didn't say that, I am going to say it. I think we need to mandate it at that level.
Somebody on the live was saying that they saw lots of students and their parents at the stadium on Saturday. Students getting vaccinated.
And that is a good thing because the parents need the students to be out there.
But we have it for other polio and measles. And,
I have spoken to some adults who are more concerned. They are not vaccinated, but they have taken their children to get vaccinated because they want their children. That's a weird reasoning, huh? They want their children to go to school, and they don't want their children to be exposed. So they prefer to get their children vaccinated while they are not vaccinated. Like Saturday, I tell one, well, what kind of example is that? She said, I can't be bothered now. I don't want my child sick. I said, so when are you going to go? She said, come and bring me. I said, I'm coming in. Believe you me, I'm coming.
I thought he was very good on that analysis and what he did there.
Excellent.
And to bring home the point that we're not out of the woods.
We are not. And the fact is that we have to, data drives all these planning and decisions. And we just can't sit and when you see us talking and even like people are supposed to know better. Well, a lot of people say, well, it's because it's out there. No, you step to us with data. And this is what is driving your decision. When we sit down by the shop, we could say a lot of people see, right? But when you step in to make decisions, you have to be more, and we have to train our people, and we have to guide the conversation and mold the young minds, generations to come, as to how we need to start thinking about things. We really have to. But that was a great thing. I just think we needed it, I especially, as I want to, go out and
we'll get to that conversation. Why are you looking at me like that?
You want to continue her conversation?
Somebody are you looking at me like if I had to scold you, Brenda? He gave me that kind of look. Anyway, folks, we gotta go. Have a great week. What are you looking forward to this week, Senator Allie?
Well, just getting ready for the Christmas, and we at my facility working hard to make sure we could provide color and joy to people over the season. And
I like that.
That is something that we're working hard towards, and my staff is all geared up and ready to roll. And it's one of those things. Christmas is a period of the year that I enjoy.
Me too. I love it.
I like the giving and the sharing.
That's why the door had to open up.
And it's one of those times of the year that I really like. And I'm hoping, as I said in the opening of the program, 2020, 2021 have been difficult years.
Very difficult years.
2021 more so because of the number of deaths. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
hoping that we could have some cheer and joy as we end the year.
Yes.
And, we manage, and that in January and February, as Gerard said, we don't get back to a place where we have to,
the sadness.
sadness.
Yeah.
So, I look forward. I am like you, I'm a glass full person. I'm
Yeah.
not, half empty. So
Yeah. Did I say I stupid, but that's okay.
I am positive person. I want to go by Byron and cook and eat 2 oranges and so on. So,
I know,
those are the
remember we're
things.
supposed to go on the farm?
Yeah. And you know, actually said the wife in here. So
The invoice. The
Lord,
info-
okay, putting all the man business.
The info is out. We know joy and color sound like a promotion.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Joy and color. And
Sound
don't we
like-
all need some joy and some color?
That's the point. That's the point.
Not the political colors, though.
Yeah.
God have
Yeah.
mercy.
Yeah.
We're doing Christmas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Silly season coming, but
No. Let me keep it there. Joy and color, Christmas.
you have plenty
Agreed.
color in food, so
Of course.
Yes.
plenty color.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Let's get there, man.
Yeah.
No, we need it. We absolutely need it.
Yeah.
So let's do that. On
Yeah.
Friday, our Prime Minister, it was his birthday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Milestone birthday it was. So from us here at Perspective, sir, happy birthday to you.
That's
Scorpions, we tend to celebrate
That's in order.
all month long. So even though the birthday was Friday, I'm sure you are continuing to celebrate. Very well done. Cheers to you. More life. God bless.
Yes.
Yeah. That's our program. That's our program, everyone. Have a really, really great week and let us continue. We're having a hard time enough. These 18 months have felt like one long year. So let's try to be kind one to another. Yeah? Have a great day, everyone. Until our next Perspectives, I'm Brenda. Bye-bye.
Yeah.